Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Sorry, I was sending a text. Shouldn't have been doing that on the show. My boss texted me right before we came on, so I was just texting him back. It's Will Brooks. It's Partnership for Profits. We got a great episode this morning. We have Michael Kerr here, who is a dedicated estate planning attorney who is helping individuals and families create plans that safeguard their legacy, avoid mistakes, and bring peace of mind. Michael, we were just chatting before you came on. I'm excited to hear your story and hear what you have going on. Thank you so much for giving us some time this morning, man. I know it's very early where you are, so really thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Will. It's a pleasure. Yeah. So as we were saying, I'm out here in Southern California. The only time I put on a suit is for things like this, because out here, they just expect us to be in rainbows and white T-shirts all the time. So, but yeah, so got my exercise in this morning because you gonna keep the body in shape as well as the mind. But
right on.
So I was in the Army. I actually had grown up in Maine, and the Army dragged me out to California. I did my 6 years, got out, ended up, I had a little bit of a disability, as the VA will call it. So, I've spent a lot of years, maybe a decade and a half, doing a lot with disabled American veterans and being a state commander, being at the national level. And I decided a little bit later in life, after my accounting degrees and some of that, to get my law degree, because I'd thought about that for years, and no real plan of what I was going to do with it. And lucky for me, I've got somebody really amazing in my life who's also an attorney, who's like, why aren't you using your degree? And I don't know, maybe simple, stupid questions like that are helpful in your life every now and then. So I kind of was looking at what I want to do, and I looked at the people I surround myself with, the veteran family as well as my immediate family, and decided I just need to. Nobody has anything in place. You spend all this time fighting for your country, and you don't really worry about what's going on at home, how your family's going to get taken care of if you were to pass, what's going to happen. So I decided to just kind of try and focus on that community at first, just, call it a niche, if you will, but just help my fellow vets get everything in place, and honestly kind of try and be a legal hub for them, in that, even if I can't provide the service that they need, I can put them in the right direction with somebody who's, I tell them veteran friendly, but, somebody who understands what they've been through and how to help them get where they need to go.
Awesome, man. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And you said something interesting there that is something that I try to live by. You talked about someone important in your life kind of saying, hey, why aren't you doing something with this law degree? I'm a firm believer in having people in your life who sometimes we just need permission to take a step into the direction we need to go. And if you've got those kind of people in your life that will say, hey, why don't you do this? And in your head, you're like, sometimes you think, yeah, why am I not doing that? And you have that person in your life who basically is like giving you permission to say, hey, it's cool to make that step. So super happy that you have that person in your life. That's I'm a firm believer in that, of having people in your corner that kind of give you that permission to maybe take those chances and take those steps. So that's super awesome. So the focus on your practice, is it I want to make sure I understood you correctly. Is it going to be focused on veterans and setting up their estates? Is that kind of the idea, or is it more broad than that? I don't want to put you in a corner.
Well, I mean, I help everybody.
Right.
I'm not kicking somebody out because they aren't a veteran. That's kind of where I started, just because when I first started 5-6 years ago with my practice, it wasn't full time. And so I needed to really kind of hone in on where I wanted to focus, because as you know, with your podcast and businesses, is if you're everywhere, you're probably nowhere, because you can't serve your clients. So I know my client base. We interact all the time. I know what they expect, what they want, what they are hoping they can get out of life, and what they want with their legacy, and have that show. So for me, it was an easy transition to go from, being a mentor and a friend with regards to, their abilities and or lack thereof because of their conditions to helping them with their estate planning. So yeah, I predominantly do estate planning. I have largely focused on helping my fellow veteran community, but yeah, I don't turn people away because they're not
Right on.
veterans. They may not get the same discount, but
Well, they haven't earned that, man. They haven't earned that discount.
yeah,
So that's great. I love it. Like I said, I just want to make sure I got clarity from my end to make sure I
fair
understood
enough.
what you're doing. So estate planning. I think when a lot of people think about estate planning and trusts and estate and wills and all that stuff, a lot of people think of that as being something for wealthy people. Um, I feel like what at least my research on you is you believe that it's something that every family needs to be thinking about. Give me a little bit of your thinking on that and why it's so important for everyone, regardless of what your income status might be, to have something in place for when the time comes.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people think that you only need an estate plan in place if you have a yacht and a Bentley and
Right.
you have 10,000 shares of PepsiCo sitting in your family vault. But that's one aspect of an estate plan is the financial aspect. But what a lot of people tend to overlook is some of the best treasures you have in your life, your successes are your kids, your grandkids. As if you have a business, and what's the legacy you're leaving there. So even if you don't have a lot of assets, if you have minor kids, what I like to tell people, it's like, what if you and your spouse decide on a Friday night to go out for fondue and then you never come back, and you've got young kids at home, who's going to take care of them? Who's going to
Right.
take care of them on the short term, on the long term? I recently had a client where he wants to, if something were to happen to him and his wife, he wants his kids to go to the brother-in-law. And it's like, well, that's great, but they live in a foreign country. So even if they can get here, then you're going to have to worry about, potentially the State Department or whatever, trying to get them out.
Right.
Plus, who's going to be here in the short term? So you got to, they don't think about things like that. And it's like, yeah, you have a lot of assets. Yeah, you probably need something for the financial aspect of it. But when you really start taking kind of a holistic approach to understanding who they are and what they need, you realize that it's not just about the money aspect of it, as opposed to, like I said, the legacy with, your kids and your family, and giving peace of mind to those around you.
Love it. I couldn't agree more. We've got something like that in place. I have children, so I've got something like that in place as well that we've kind of already accounted for. And yeah, everyone needs to do that regardless of how much money you make or how many assets or how many physical assets you have. Because I mean, the most important asset that we all have is our family. So 100%. Speaking of family, that word, uh it's a it's a powerful word, obviously, but did you just get certified as a personal family lawyer, or I want to you were talking to me a little bit about that before we started recording.
Yeah, yeah.
um
So there's a program for estate planning professionals, whether you're new or you've been doing it for quite a long time, or you've been an attorney forever, a litigator, and you decide you want to change up your practice. So it's the new law business model. So I just went through the process of going through and getting their assessment and passing that to become one of their life and legacy attorneys. And honestly, for me, it's, I've been doing it. I know how to interact with my clients. I generally know how to bring them in and close them if I need to, but it helps me as kind of, you know, I'd say young attorney, but a newer attorney, to help with my processes, my systems, because
right.
I listened to a couple of your pods, and it comes down to that a lot of the times is, you need to have the efficiencies in there. You need to know kind of, your break even, where you need to go, how many clients you got to bring in, how many you got
Right.
to close, and so on and so forth. And even though I've got my master's in accounting, and I've done that in audits for years. It seems like a lifetime ago. It's a whole different animal when you're running the show and you're trying to make sure you got all the underpinnings in place. And so for me, it was a place where not only it's a community that I can ask questions and get follow up from professional estate planning attorneys throughout the country, but it allows me, like I said, to help kind of solidify my processes. Because if I can be more client facing, if I could talk to more clients and understand what it is they need and spend less time in the weeds, for me, it's a win-win. I like
Right.
talking to people, so it
Yeah,
helps.
man, for sure. So, and that's, you know, you talking about processes and having that stuff in place. That I talk to a lot of attorneys on the podcast, and the number one thing I hear from them is when you go to law school, they teach you how to be a lawyer. They do
Mhm.
not teach you how to run a business. You're not getting business classes when you're going to law school. It's a completely different animal. So,
Mm-mm.
yeah, that's great that you have that. So, personal family lawyer, that's a phrase that I have just started hearing myself personally, like in the last couple of months. I've talked to a couple of other attorneys who, you know, who put out there that they're a personal family lawyer. When I first saw that term, my head immediately went to family law, which, you know,
Mhm.
divorce, custody, that kind of stuff, prenups. But that's not what a personal family lawyer is, correct? Like, can you break down a little bit about what a personal family lawyer is versus a family lawyer, what the traditional, you know, what people think of as a family lawyer? What's the difference, and what are you guys providing for people in that world?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have probably watched like the TV show, the Lincoln Lawyer, right? And so it's like, oh yeah, you get arrested and you're calling the family attorney. So it's not quite that level, right? So and like you said, a lot of people think, okay, family law, family attorney,
Right.
and yeah. So no, I'm not out here doing prenups and postnups. I have people I can call if I need to get those done, but it's more along the lines of a lot of people when they get their estate plannings done, wills, trusts, power of attorney, healthcare directives, etc., they don't really ever follow up with it, and that's part of the process. That I've seen as part of the problem is people will create their documents and then they put them on a shelf somewhere, and then 20 years later when it's needed, somebody dusts it off and tries to read it again, and you know it's just not effective. So what we try to do is not only communicate on the front end with what is the legacy that you want to leave behind, how do you want your kids or your grandkids or your aunts or uncles to get taken care of, your parents still alive, do you want them to stay in your house if you were to go, um, you know because I do a lot with vets, I have a lot that inquire about, hey, can I give money to charity, and so we work out, okay, but what's specifically are you looking to do with that? But from my perspective with the life and legacy plan and that kind of relationship is, I don't want to be, and pardon me if it's a military term, but the fire and forget. I don't want to just give you a set of documents and then go, bye. We don't need to ever talk again because I sent
Right.
you one time. So part of the process for me is, follow up, because a lot of people, as you said, you've got your kids, your family. It's, yeah, unfortunately you add, but you can also subtract family. Whether it's divorce, accidents, you move to another state, you buy more property, and all those kind of major life events. Once you have a plan in place, a lot of people don't really think about, oh, I need to update my plan. It's okay, you see on the news, okay, a major change happened in the law, but you don't think about how that's going to impact you or the plan that you have in place. And so being able to follow up with the clients and be like, hey, I just want to let you know this happened. If you want, I can review what we did in the past, or if you have another plan in place from somebody else, I'm more than happy to take a look at it, make sure it's still effective and gives you everything that you need. Because ultimately it comes down to, you want that peace of mind. You want to have a document that you feel best represents your interests, hopefully keeps you out of court and probate, because nobody wants to go through that process in California if they can avoid it. And yeah, so for me it's more than just the one-time transactional
Hmm.
relationship that
Right.
you seem to get a lot of the times with either, we call them the will mills, right? All they do is they just keep pumping out wills. There's no connective tissue there, and that's what I try to avoid, and then build with my clients is a relationship.
That makes sense with the name personal family lawyer. It's an attorney who is continually looking out for the best interest of your family, almost like they're maybe this is too deep into it, but to me it's almost like they're an extension of the family. You're an extension of that family. You're looking out for the whole, as opposed to the one transaction that you're trying to create.
Yeah.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's
Not that I'm
fantastic.
going to, not that I'm going to equate myself with it, but kind of like a guardian angel, right? Somebody who's
Yeah,
helping you look over your best
somebody who's
interests
looking
and
out
guide
for
you in the
you.
right direction to accomplish your goals.
Right on. I love that. Like I said, and I feel like that's something that's been around for a while, but I have just, and like I said, we work with a lot of attorneys in our business and on the podcast here, but it's a phrase that I've just started seeing popping up recently.
Mhm.
I know it's been out there for a minute, but I'm just kind of seeing it more and more. So Michael, the title of the episode that we're recording today is the estate planning mistake that could cost your family everything. Um, in your mind, what is that mistake that can kind of cost everything to your family in you know if when the inevitable happens, whether that's when you're 90 or whether it's when you're 45 or whatever it is, what is that mistake that you see that can cost a family everything?
Yeah, so I mean, Father Time has 100% win rate, right? So, so for me, it's kind of it's two issues. It's on the front end and it's on the back. So, as we discussed, on the front side, getting the documents that best reflect what you want. Uh, you know, having specificity and making sure it complies with the laws of your state. If you just say I want to leave it to my spouse and then you change spouses but before it's enacted, which spouse are we going with, your current or the one that was in your paperwork back then? You name kids but then you have more kids, or what I see a lot here and I'm sure is everywhere, you end up with blended families, and so
Hmm.
you get stepkids and this, that, and the other, and it's like, okay, well, the stepdad passed. Does the stepmom get everything? Does everything go to his, hers, or ours? So a lot of that is the front side stuff, not having enough specificity and not being certain on. And as we've said, the word legacy, knowing where everything's going to carry on that legacy for you. And the other huge pitfall that I see a lot of times, and part of the problem with people going online and getting their stuff, is they don't really understand what it comes to executing your documents, and we call that funding. So, if you own your home in California back in April, they just changed the law to give you a little bit bigger of a threshold on financially what qualifies for probate. And honestly, we're in California, so I mean, still 90% of the houses probably don't fall under that because they're so expensive out here. But with the funding, it's actually changing title to your property. So whether that be, your primary home, if you have vacation homes, whatever, you have, your bank accounts, those kind of things. And something as simple as, like, you were mentioning with young ones, I see a lot of times is I've got a lot of people with businesses or that have done well for themselves, and they have retirement accounts, life insurance, but they have young kids and they don't think far enough ahead, and that they're like, oh yeah, my kids are a beneficiary. It's like, well, like most states, California, your kid at 3 years old can't collect a 6 or 7 figure life insurance policy. The court's going to then get involved, appoint a guardian, somebody who's going to, be a custodian for those assets until the kid reaches the age of maturity. And, you know, is the person that they appoint the person you would want appointed? You've got a brother-in-law that you don't really trust with money, but the court doesn't know them. So if they petition and they happen to win out, uh, good luck. Hopefully they spend it properly and according with how you would want it. Another thing, is even I've had some clients that spiritually they want their kids raised in a certain way,
Right.
and so they're curious about which family members they want to leave their child with. So yeah, so getting everything you want in the front end and then making sure it's actually executed and funded on the back end are usually the big issues, because not a lot of people understand without proper guidance what documents need to go in there, how to properly title them. Because I mean, if you've ever filed with your local county, they want specific forms, needs to be in a specific format, and if it's wrong, you're going to have some issues on the back end where you need another attorney to correct your deed issues.
Cool. Let's talk a little. Let's get a little technical for. Let's get layman technical. I want to kind of break down some things for the layman out there who's not an attorney. Wills versus trusts. What's the difference between a will and a trust?
Yeah, so for me the simplest terms I usually give to my clients, at least in California, is a will. When it comes to court and your documents, a will is more of a guideline and a trust is more of a rule, right? So how it's largely interpreted. For a will, it's, I want this to happen, I want this to happen. But then you're gonna, depending on the size of your estate, you're probably gonna have to go through the probate process, which out here is gonna probably be a couple years and tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how much assets you have. And they got to bring in, somebody's got to evaluate the assets, somebody's got to litigate it. So there's attorneys, there's all kinds of other people involved that you didn't necessarily want involved. Plus, now it's a legal document because it's in the system, which, especially with me dealing with veterans, is one of the things they love, is that their life isn't going to be in public record, subject to FOIA. But yeah, and so the trust is better in that you're actually physically retitling your property. So you are the trustee, whether it's revocable or irrevocable, that's another conversation, but you're retitling it, and that the trust, a separate entity, is the one who actually owns it. And it helps a lot, as you may know, with business owners too. If you can have an LLC, you can have an S corp, but you can also put those rights under the trust. So if you're ever in a car accident, something ever happens, you're sued personally, well, you can look back and say, well, here's my piece of paper. I don't own anything. My trust owns it. And therefore, I'm a little protected. So obviously it doesn't work in, every single case. That's why you need to usually bring in a qualified attorney to help draft it and make sure your protections are in place. But yeah, it basically comes down to, as I like to say and simplify it, it's will or shall, right? The will should work unless the courts decide not, and then the trust is the actual physical legal document with a change of title.
Perfect. I think that's a great way to kind of sum up that question. You started talking a little bit about, whether you're a business owner or an entrepreneur. That's something I wanted to get into, is how estate planning looks different for a business owner or an entrepreneur versus someone who is not owning their own business. They have assets, they have things that they need to take care of, but they don't have that business asset at the same time. So what do entrepreneurs and business owners need to think about when it comes to estate planning that other people might be, might not be thinking about?
Well, I think it comes down a little bit to what I was saying about having those protections in place. And honestly, for a lot of people, myself included, right? If you own your own business, you started, it's kind of like it is your extra baby, right? And so you want to have those protections in place. And part of the process with having an attorney go through the process with you as a business owner is, reviewing your documents. If you have shares in your S corp, let's look at your documents and see how they're titled right now. If it's to you as a person, you can always transfer your shares into the trust. The same with the LLC, and it's all about giving you extra protections, because you didn't work your butt off to create this entity that you're proud of, just to have one issue, one mistake, one troubling issue come up, and then just rip it right out from underneath you. So it's all about the layers of protections and understanding what it is your business does, how it's run, managed, and the legalese that goes into how it was created versus how you want it to be taken care of in the future.
Got it. I want to know, as we get older in our lives, we go to the doctor more regularly. We're getting checked up on more regularly, right? We have regular checkups, a yearly physical, and then, as you get older, other things you have to get checked on regularly as well. When it comes to an estate, or your estate and your assets, how often and at what point, at what age is the right time to start looking at it regularly, and how often do you need to have it? Do you need to look at it with a professional like yourself and update things? Is there a right number for that you recommend?
Honestly, one of the things I was doing this summer, my girlfriend and I, we have a bit of a blended family, and her middle child just went off to college and turned 18. And so he plays water polo and is playing in college. And we have a lot of friends in that community as well. And so, we know a lot of kids that are just heading off to college, turning 18.
Right.
And what a lot of parents don't realize is, when your kids turn 18, pretty much all your parental rights are severed. You no longer have access to their medical information. You no longer have access to their educational information. And for somebody who's dropping a lot of money to send your kid to college, to not know how they're doing, sometimes whether it's control or just interest, the parents are curious about that. So I had quite a few clients this year. I ran a little special to just kind of discuss, hey, these are, you want a power of attorney, you want your healthcare directive, and you want, it's called a FERPA, FERPA, FERPA
Mhm.
form for your access to college records for your child. And so, I mean, as young as 18, have something in place. And I mean, an estate plan can be, a trust, a will, power of attorney, healthcare directive, et cetera. It doesn't mean every specific case requires every document. I had a client recently who is a veteran and has a plan in place. And he said, oh, yeah, well, the VA gave me a healthcare directive and the VA did this, and that. I'm like, okay, but what about your wife? And he's like, I'm like, okay, you're taken care of. They, as the VA tends to do, they take care of the veteran, but the spouse and your caregivers are left behind. So, and that's the thing with asking questions, because if you go online and do it for a few $100, that's great, but they're not prompting you and they're not trying to understand you. They're just giving you a set of documents and they're going to let you run off with it. So yeah, as young as 18, I got clients in their 70s and 80s right now who are just doing this for the first time because they realize, oh yeah, they've got adult kids and then now they've got grandkids, and it's like, okay, we only have so much to give and we have so many people to give to. Let's start thinking about how you want to do that, because you can just say, okay, I want it to just kind of go to my family, but then you're letting California define that for you.
They get to, yeah, the state will then decide whose family and who gets what. Is that how that
Exactly.
works? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the details are important.
Exactly.
For sure. Michael, you mentioned before we started recording, you're doing 75 hard. And I know a big part of that is it's not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing. And I know a big part of that is reading every day. Tell me real quick before we wrap it up here. I want to know what you're reading right now. What are your pages that you're getting in every day?
Great. Now, we're going to have people following me on Instagram being like, hey, I know you're on it. Where are you at? So actually, I just picked this one up recently, the 100% mortality. It's all about excuses and understanding estate planning. I know it's crazy, right?
It's hitting your head, man. That's good.
Yeah. So actually, I think I listened to another podcast and it had come up and I'm like, well, it helps come over a lot of the defenses and excuses, and to understand why people don't necessarily want to do a plan or why it takes so long for them to do a plan. And a lot of it is literally the title, right? It's the mortality. It's people don't want to think about what happens when they pass,
Right.
but unfortunately not thinking about it isn't going to help your family in the long run. And for me, it's about giving that sense of security that your family, as they're going through the grief of losing you, they're not also having to figure out how to divide everything, where all your stuff is supposed to go. If you don't have documents or they're not available, then they're having to guess. And it honestly, it divides families, and that's part of why we say the family lawyer and the legacy. I had a friend not long ago. Her father had passed, and I was working with him on getting something in process, but it was during COVID, so we couldn't really meet.
Right.
And he's of the generation where he needs to do everything in person, so we just could not meet and get it done. And unfortunately, he passed, and he had the two adult kids. They already had a little bit of a contentious relationship.
Oh, wow.
And they barely speak to each other now. They fought and fought and fought, and it's because nothing was in place. And what I try to tell people is, if you love your family, don't put them through that. Don't make them have to make the choices. Don't
Right.
make them have to go to court and fight over your stuff when it's your stuff. And you should be able to tell them right up front, hey, this is what I want to happen. And, and it helps if you bring, your family in early and be like, hey, this is kind of what I have, and this is kind of where I want it to go. Is this what you want? Would you want this? Because, I do charitable stuff. And they're more than happy to take some of my things and use it for other veterans and other purposes. Right. So for me, that's kind of where I'm at in that process.
Cool. All right, last question for the pod here, Michael. I like to get a little deep with people here at the end. It's not deep. I mean, we're not going like existential, but I want you to think about your legacy beyond your work. And when you think about not beyond your work, when you think about your work, what's the bigger impact that you want to have on the families that you're serving?
I just want them to have, like I said, the security, the peace of mind. I want them to be able to feel like they can grow old and not have to worry because they put stuff in place that will carry on. I have clients with classic cars they want to keep in the family. I have I just recently had a Navy veteran who is a diver, and he's got a couple of dive helmets he wanted to leave to his boys. And it's those little things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, you could say it's like, oh, I want to leave, I want to have my name on buildings, and I want to do this, that, and the other. But honestly, for me, it comes down to family. And I want my kids and the grandkids to look back someday and be like, okay, I'm proud of him, he did a great job. you know they know enough about your history. You served, spent way too much time in college, all those things. But for me, the legacy is more my family. I mean, we like to travel and do stuff, and I told my kids years ago that you're never gonna. We tend to do vacations instead of like gifts at Christmas time.
Experiences, man. Yeah.
I told my
Yeah.
kids, it's like you're never gonna look back and say Switzerland, but that credit, that gift card I got one time. Whew, man, that memories, right? That Xbox, it bought me another controller, and man, that changed my life for forever.
I could not agree more, man. Experiences are you can't put experiences or memory, and memory is forever. And I love that philosophy. We have the same philosophy in our family as well. I love to gift experience rather than something physical, because you have that forever to look back on. So
we already have next year's even planned out. It's great.
Where are you going? Where are you gonna go?
So we're actually we like going to Park City. So we're actually getting a big Airbnb just outside of the city, and we're bringing all the kids and the grandkids, and we told them you have almost a year to figure it out. So that'll be our kind of belated Christmas. And
that's awesome.
Do that.
Love it. Yeah, we're gonna do New York City at Christmas time this year. So that's our plan is kind of our Christmas this year. We love to go up there at Christmas time. So I'm in Georgia. I'm in Atlanta. So we're here in the South, but love getting up to New York when we can at Christmas time. I think it's kind of it's magical, and the kids love it when we're there at Christmas. So we got our experience planned as well. Michael, man, I've really
been in your neighborhood. I was in at Fort Gordon in Augusta for about a year
really
training. Mm-hmm.
That's so funny because the guy that owns our company, Armando LeDuc, he's the LeDuc and LeDuc Entertainment. He and I go way back. We've been friends for 25 years, and we met in Augusta 25 years ago. And his dad is former military, and I think that's why they moved to Augusta, because he was at Fort Gordon. I used to do the dinner theater at Fort Gordon back in the day. So yeah, that's my old stomping grounds. That's crazy.
That's funny.
Very cool. Michael, this has been a great conversation. I've loved what you brought to the table. I love your outlook on what people need to be doing to take care of their family and think about the things they need to put in place. Everybody needs to be thinking of that. Do you work with people outside of California, or are you strictly in California as far as your client base goes?
Well, I'm only licensed in California. Okay. So I'm working. We have my adult daughter, she's a financial planner, and so she has a lot of clients in Massachusetts. So she's trying to encourage me when I get all my systems in place to get licensed in Mass. And then honestly, being from Maine and still having a lot of friends and family out there, like it's an excuse to go to the East Coast and put it on the company dime.
Right on.
But I need to grow it and make it sustainable where it's a viable option to go do that. So yeah, for the most part, I only do California stuff, but obviously, I know other attorneys. I work with other attorneys. I can always find you a safe spot to land, no matter where you're at.
So, for those people who are listening, and we do have listeners and viewers in California, let people know how they can find you, get in touch with you, and get some help from you if they need it.
Yeah, I have the website, Michael Kerr Law. It's a rudimentary one that they created for the program that I'm in. So I'm in the process of getting that up and running, and I'm on social. I think it's the attorney Kerr, attorney _ Kerr. So I'm just getting kind of into the realm of I need to realize how I need to get on socials and do great experiences like this, because for some reason clients just don't randomly find you a lot of the times.
Yeah, man, you got to put yourself out there for sure. So Love it, man. All the best of luck to you in getting things going. I want to continue talking to you off the pod, and kind of see what else you have going on. And I'm sure that, you know, I can also connect you with some people that will be able to help you out. So let's continue the conversation off the podcast. Those of you who are watching the podcast live right now, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're watching the recorded version on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, we do appreciate you guys checking out the show as well. Please make sure you give us the stars and the thumbs and the likes and all that good stuff. It really helps the show out and helps it get in front of the right people. And we thank you guys for tuning in. Michael, I thank you again for your time. I will be back right here in a couple of hours with another podcast with another great guest. Hopefully brings as much great stuff to the table as our friend Michael here has this morning. And Michael, again, thank you for getting up at the crack of dawn to come on the pod. I didn't realize you were in California. So
the sun is just starting to creep out.
Well, you know, I got your brain working. I got your brain pumping. So you're ready to have a great day.
I like getting up early. I always start my day with a workout.
Right on.
My brain get too far into the fog.
Indeed. Well, I hope it's a great day. I thank you again for coming on, and thank you guys for watching. And I'll be back here shortly with another great episode of Partnership for Profits. We will see you then.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.